Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Qur'anite.com. Today's Thursday the 18th of June 2020. It's just a quick update on me and the perennial question of the corona psychosis. Where I am in Russia, in Kazan, they've sort of relaxed things for a bit, so you can go out for a walk and you don't have to be afraid of the police jumping on you and attacking you and everything. But this is just the lull before the storm. I think it's quite clear that this is the first sort of bout of this was just the test run, the beta test, and I mean, clearly there is some sort of virus, but I mean, viruses are just part of life. So I think they're just testing the delivery system and the contagion, and then next time they're going to put in the payload. So for me, the way I see things, at least, I'm using this time to finish my work. I've actually had to make myself take some rest because I was just getting burnt out to finish this, because I think the next round or the next rounds, whether it's next month, next year, who knows, it's coming. It's like after 9/11. I mean, this is 9/11 2.0. Nothing's ever going to be the same. We're now in the new normal, and they're rolling the herd from one part of the plantation to another part of the plantation. But that's not my primary concern, because they plan and God plans, and God is the best of planners. What I wanted to share was just a few thoughts about this thing. It's quite logical that this COVID-19 thing should be rolled out, because everything else has been weaponized over the last 40, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. The ruling elite have basically, what's in my opinion been happening is the rollout of a new form of communism. It's a new form of socialism, and socialism always kills. I live in a country which has a socialist history, and depending on your sources, between 40 and 80 million people were murdered by the government in this country, or at least in the Soviet Union, over the course of the 20th century. Socialism has to kill. It has to kill because it needs somebody to blame for the failures of its ideology. And the thing that unifies all of these rollouts is a left-wing socialistic ideology. And if you're going to sort of identify socialism is really it's two things. Firstly, nothing's anybody's fault, and secondly, everyone has to pay for it not being anybody's fault. It's this lack of personal responsibility for everything, dressed up in a garb of seeming concern, but it's not real concern, it's just fake concern. It's really what happened to Christianity once they took religion out of Christianity. And so, to go back to my main point, what I see has happened over the last 40, 50, 60 years is everything has been socialized. And socialism is really Talmudism. It's a way of making things which were sensible and normal and understandable and logical into things which cannot be understood. In fact, any attempt to understand them or to insist upon any sort of objective criteria is just a sign of you being bad. And this is really the ideology. And this happens most famously and most obviously in Judaism and with Jews themselves, who as a psychopathic racial franchise, which in fact it is a form of virus, because if you think about it, being Jewish is something you can kind of catch, and once you've caught the virus you can't get rid of it, and it has to be believed. It's a philosophy, a bit like COVID-19, and any criticism of it is really it's really just a statement of there being something wrong in the person himself. In fact, it can only Jewishness can only really sort of perceive or discuss criticism in terms of the fault of the critic, including other Jews. Any Jew who criticizes what Jews do in the world is a self-hating Jew. It's not that he might have a point and we ought to consider it. And this kind of Talmudification of criteria, of taxonomies, of ways of defining things, has reached out into everything. It's now infected to use the word advisedly, all races, except of course, you know, white race, and most specifically white males. And I should know because I'm a white male, so you know, I've been on the receiving end of this idea of my own toxicity for the whole of my life, and perhaps one day white males will also be included in the pantheon of those sacred cows of untouchables who've been sort of suffered in some way. Of course, there are exceptions. If you're white and male, is if you're a sodomite, then that's, you know, you kind of get in on that basis. But they've done it leaving aside the racial question, which is so you know, so emotive. They've done it to the weather. We used to just have weather. It used to be just that the weather was the weather. Now we don't just have weather. We have global warming, but then it's also global, what do they call it, weather, climate change. Everything is in this sort of viral state. It's been done to education, where primarily, you know, previously we used to actually have maths, you know, 1 + 1 is 2, and so on. And now there's the new maths, this progressive maths. It's maths which is really based on opinion. They've done it to the sexes, where a man was a man, a woman was a woman, but not any longer. We've got all of these different perceptions of sex and so on. So is it so really crazy that they're doing it also to the, well, to seasonal flu? No, it's not. It's entirely logical. It's not also so surprising that the people who believe in this most virulently and vociferously are people who are themselves socialists. I've noticed that just from life, and but also from contacts on social media and so on, that the people who seem least likely to go along with the dominant narrative are more conservative, whereas who would normally 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago have been considered, and I suppose I'm one, to be, to some extent anyway, to be the establishment. But those people who are who think of themselves as being anti-establishment and progressive, whatever that means, are the ones who are screaming blue murder if you stand within 15 feet of them, if you haven't got you know, a hazmat suit on. So again, this is I think it was is it Gramsci's March Through the Institutions, where they decided to roll out communism, socialism, not on the basis of a sort of overtly political ideology, but on the basis of a covert political ideology. And all of this is a political ideology. It's the thing that unites all of these different budget line projects. It is a fundamentally socialistic virus, and so the fact, and all these things are working together, you know, towards the end of creating this world tyranny. So all that to say, it's not hugely surprising that they've done it. You know, they've done it to everything else. I just would have loved to have been at the meeting where they came. You know what? We've done it to the weather. We've done it to the races. We've done it to the sexes. We've done it to the education. We've done it to the entertainment industry. We've done it to the music industry. We've done it to so many things. We've done it to the. Have I said weather? Yeah, I think I said weather. And somebody, there must have been some little bean counter at the back of the room. I think it was probably Bill Gates. He said, you know what? We haven't done it to the seasonal flu, and they just thought, yes, that's what we've been missing all this time. So clearly, just to kind of bring it down a bit, I'm using the lull between the storms, because clearly this is just phase one to finish up my work. And because if I'm going to get herded into some COVID-19 death camp for organ harvesting, whatever it is, at the point of a gun, I want to know that I finished my work. So that's why I'm not making a lot of videos. It's because I'm focused on that. As with everything and anything, it all takes a lot longer than you think. But I mean, I had a will to work before, and I was working with a purpose before now. But at this time, you know, it's all that much more intense, because none of us knows how long we've got. But none of us knew how long we had anyway. And as I have said before, this isn't a new This isn't a new strategy, this isn't a new agenda, we're just moving along, you know, along the conveyor belt that we've been moving along. Our grandparents were moving along, probably our great-grandparents were moving along, so nothing's new under the sun on that score. But what I wanted to say is all of this works together. There is a method to the madness, most certainly, and the consistency across the whole board is this socialistic ideology, whether it's, you know, if you look at the so-called LGBT, you know, the Sodomite agenda, which is turning into the paedophile agenda, this is a socialist agenda. I mean, if men want to bugger each other in the kitchen, I don't think most people today really could care less. They just say, well, shut the door, you know. But that's not enough. They don't just want your acquiescence. They want you to celebrate it, and that's what this is really all about. Whether it's you know, whether it's to do with climate change, so-called, or Sodomites, or this, it's an ideology, and it's not just that you disagree with it or you reserve the right to, in some ways, dissent. You don't have that right, and the fact that you don't go along with it isn't just your point of view, it is that you are a bad person. And that's why I started on the subject of anti-Semitism, because that virus is baked into the cake of that particular agenda item, and it's baked into the cake of all these others. It's assumed conclusions. In fact, it's in brand Islam as well. It's not just that you disagree, it's not just that you've done your due diligence, it's not just that you can demonstrate why you don't agree with it. No, you're a kafir, you're a bad person, you're going to hell, you're evil. All of these budget lines basically use the same kind of mechanism, the same kind of trick, and it's an assumed conclusion, it's circular reasoning, and it's about name calling. It's not to do with anything objective. And what people find so difficult to understand is that these things are all blowing in the same direction, and they have an end in view. For some reason, I've just always been able to see this, and I think a lot of people who follow this channel are able to see it. So for me, I'm just staying focused on what I think can change it, and what I see can change it is what's worked in the past. And what's worked in the past has been a very specific protocol of warning the elite and holding them accountable in the same way that they hold us accountable. Because fundamentally, you can keep pressing all the wrong buttons as many times as you like, it won't make any difference. But you only have to press the right button once, and this is, from what my reading of the Qur'an is the protocol, the example that we've been given and are supposed to follow. So for me, I'm just getting my ducks in a row. For me, my work, the Qur'an, a complete revelation, and its accompanying work, the God Protocol, are a form of legal, a legal presentation, almost a serving of a writ on a legal basis to the elite. And if I thought that standing under a bridge and shouting at passing cars would change things, or if I believed that the when enough people wake up thing was true, I'd be doing that, but I don't believe it. And that's why I don't make my videos more consumer friendly. That's why I don't talk down to people who aren't going to understand what I'm talking about. It's why I'm not interested in lots of followers. It's just because it's not about numbers. It never has been for me. It's about finishing this one particular project, and when it's done, quite honestly, I really don't know what I'm going to do after that. But I do know that if I don't do it and I die in the meantime, I'm going to be so irritable. So in the interests of dying with a clear conscience, whenever that comes, I'm going to finish what I can finish, God willing. That's why I'm not making a lot of videos, because quite frankly, for me, it's not the priority right now. But anyway, I just thought I would just share some of my sort of smorgasbord of thoughts at this time. We have a window of relatively easy life in Kazan over however long it lasts, week, month, who knows, a couple of months. But one thing's for certain, this new thing, this new normal isn't going anywhere, and as far as I can see, none of the other strategies of marching, shouting, protesting, the rest of it, they don't do anything. So I'm going to stick with this, and when I've finished, then we'll see where we are. Anyway, that's all for now. I hope everyone's well. If you are listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an free using the button in the top right hand corner, or buy the hard copy there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Qur'anite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. You can download the audio from my YouTube videos to your mobile device using the links in the drop down below. I recommend meetquranites.com to connect with other Qur'an alone believers. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.